There are three more important places we wanted to visit heading out of the district: the resting place of Soko and Obai's sister, the Harford School for girls, and the home of Mary's uncle who was recovering from a stroke. The system of education in Sierra Leone consists of three basic levels: the primary, junior secondary, and senior secondary. All 6 years of primary education are free of cost. Students begin junior secondary school around the age of 12 and remain at that level until they are about 15. Finally, they enroll in senior secondary schools from the ages of 15 to 18. Harford School for Girls is the oldest girls' school in the country. This secondary school is the same school Madam Ella Gulama attended as well as Kadia. Kadia graduated and went to the school back in 1970.
Maganda. Nice to meet you. Maganda. Yes. So nice to meet you. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Yes. I study in
The principal of the school, who is also Chief Momo's niece, warmly greeted us. The school first began as the Mary Home for Girls in another area called Rotifunk and was sponsored by the Women's Missionary Association of the United Brethren Church Mission in America. An uprising left the buildings badly damaged, and all of the missionaries were killed, and the 17 students who were there vanished. Then in 1900, Madam Yoko Gulama gave 11 acres of the land to the mission and relocated the school here in Moyamba. The school opened in August of that year with 8 students and renamed Harford, in honor of the longest-serving president of the Women's Missionaries Association, Mrs. Lillian Ressler Harford.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The school is Christian-centered and now serves over 700 students. This is great news, but it hasn't been easy. Across the land, the devastating civil war that lasted 11 years wiped out over 1,000 primary schools and forced 67% of all school-aged children out of school entirely by the year 2001. The educational system is still recovering, including Harford. Of course, there is also the economic dilemma. Education is just not affordable when you reach a certain level. There are also some real challenges in other parts of Africa in general, like they must face the issue that when it comes to educating children, we have to have educated and skilled teachers. This is not always the case or easy to do. Poor sanitation problems, natural disasters and illnesses, and living in war zones. All of these create problems and obstacles and challenges to receiving an education.
She wants to be a journalist.
Correct.
She wants to be a journalist. Do you have a picture?
With all of these challenges located just outside of the school's yard, inside, the students, the principal, teachers, and members of the Peace Corps appear upbeat, excited, positive, and eager to learn.
Lydia teaches French, and Hawa, which is your English name? Nicole, is a Peace Corps. Right? Part of the Peace Corps. And she teaches English. Okay, so this is wonderful. So as you can see, it's a wonderful way for all nationalities and races and ethnicities to join together for a wonderful, wonderful cause. And this is proof right here at Harford School for Girls.
I truly believe they all have what it takes to face the tough times ahead. Before I had a chance to process my visit to Harford, we came upon the resting place of Soko and Obai's only sister, Gilo. Kadia remembered the sad times after hearing the news of her passing and was here for the funeral.
This is the resting place of the Honorable Ella Koblo Gulama's only daughter. Here she is, resting at home. And it says, God be with you till we meet again. It must have been difficult to have an only daughter pass away so young in 1981, born in 1955. Again, a testament to the strength, but does a mother ever really get over the death of a child? But at least she's home. At least she is home, here, near her mother, which is a beautiful thing.
Just like with the passing of Paramount Chief Elokolama, it felt like the people here had not recovered from Gilo's death earlier. They are an emotional and compassionate people. The house here with the phone number written on the wall belongs to Mary's uncle Ernest and his wife Teresa. Her uncle is recovering from a stroke. I instantly felt a pull to touch him, hug him, and pray for him. This was probably because I cared for my mother full-time for 4 years after she, too, had a stroke. Or maybe just simply compassion. I wanted to offer any encouragement or advice I could give to the family. Mary told me that before the stroke he was very active. Now he was quiet, but only on the inside. I could tell that he still had a lot of energy inside and was really frustrated that it was simply stuck inside of a body that would not do what he wanted. I worried about him being in somewhat of a desolate area and getting the proper care. All I could do was to try and show him how he could stay active by moving his limbs as much as possible. I also talked to him about staying positive, which is really asking a lot when your body has been damaged and just doesn't seem to want to listen. I left knowing that all I could do really was pray. My trip, or should I say journey, is almost over. A few days and I will be back in the States. Since I arrived almost a month now, I've been trying to get to Bunce Island, the last place many Africans were held captive before heading into slavery. Because of financial issues as well as getting a big enough group to go to help cut down the cost of the trip has been challenging. But I'm still hopeful that somehow I'll be able to go. In the meantime, Soko has asked me to be on the #1 radio station in Sierra Leone. The #1 station. Sure, absolutely. When we arrived at the station, I quickly met everyone, including the owner of the station, and we were set to go live in just a few minutes. Radio communication is paramount in the Sierra Leone culture.
The program Inside Salon and meet you from 98.7 Universal Radio. We studio guest for this midweek edition of Inside Salon are Dr. Janice Mary Collins, when assistant professor in journalism, and they work at the Institute of Communication Research and focus on women's studies and same with gender and race. Well, Stanse belong to the Mende ethnic group and Mende name na Maginda. Welcome to Inside Salon.
Thank you. Bua to all of my Sierra Leonean brothers and sisters. Bua.
Let me say Boa is Boa
Bua.
Bise.
Bua Bise.
Okay.
Bua Bise. It is wonderful to be here. What I've discovered in my research is that a lot of African Americans feel a sense of emptiness spiritually and in their soul because they were ripped from their ancestral roots. And that's why I think it's important, one of the reasons why I think it's important, to take the voyage back across the Middle Passage, to connect with your brothers and sisters at the very core of who you are. Then you can make whatever decision you want. You know, we live in a global village now with the internet and online and text. We all have to take care of one another across the world. And that includes connecting all groups together to help one another out. I think it's also important that I'm here because I represent African Americans who have those vital, important questions that I'm able to ask. Did you know about us when we left? Did you sell us? Did you know we weren't going to come back? Could you come save us? Things like that African Americans have had in their hearts and never have been able to have the dialogue and the conversation to say, to hear the answer.
Okay. Now you intend doing a documentary in Sierra Leone.
Yes.
What do you hope to capture in this documentary and how important it is?
I hope I am allowing myself to be as truthful and honest on film. When I feel sad, when I feel happy, when I'm nervous, because I want people to experience this for themselves, even if they can't afford it. So I have to be honest, I have to be truthful. That's personally, but also being a journalist, you have to be honest and you have to be truthful. I hope and pray that in some way, by opening up this research, that there's more to you than what you've heard, what you've read, that somehow my African American sisters and brothers will finally move toward being free of slavery of the mind, free of slavery of the emotions in the heart, free of slavery spiritually and soulfully. I believe that our sisters and brothers in America, white, black, Italian, Spanish, who helped fight for freedom for slaves, they have died for us, that it is time for us now to understand there is a bigger purpose for us, and that we must heal now so that we can move on to do greater things for the world, greater things for Sierra Leoneans, greater things, because we need to rebuild Sierra Leone.
Okay, just to follow up on that, your trip to Sierra Leone connects to the theory you're working on and developing, and you call that the active centralized empowerment.
Yes.
What is this all about?
Active centralized, thank you for asking that. Active centralized empowerment, okay, that connects to marginalization. I'll specifically talk about African Americans, okay? Because African Americans are connected to slavery primarily. Because therefore African Americans are seen as subservient. African Americans are seen as less than. African Americans are seen and are oppressed. So therefore, you are not in the dominant culture. So you're on the margins. You stay on the margins. Sometimes we're marginalized internally. And what that means is certain things you can't change overnight. The system of racism. You can't change that overnight. Still today, some African Americans are killed because of the color of their skin. Period. Doesn't matter where you're from in America or where you're from in Africa. So how I wanted to know, was there a way for African Americans to move from the margins to a sense of empowerment that no matter what anyone says, no matter what system that you're in, there is more to you that's empowering, that can move you and navigate you, that is empowering rather than oppressive, that you can do yourself. For instance, when you find out where you're from in Africa, that you are now center and around your margins, you're not marginalized anymore intentionally by yourself. What you're saying is around those margins are African, next, characteristic, African American, next, American, next, if you speak Creole, next, if you speak Mende, next, if you speak English, next, if you're a woman, next, if you're leader. So your margins now encompass the beautiful person that you are. And in the center is not any aggregate or group that's oppressing you. In the center is yourself, your sense of self. So when you want to move in this direction, you may move through your characteristic of leadership. When you want to move in this direction, you move in your center of Mende. You want to move Creole. You want to move American. All of this means that no matter what anyone does, no matter what anyone's system tries to do to oppress you, you have a sense of empowerment that says, you know what? There's more to me than meets your eye. There's more to me, and I feel good, I feel confident, and I'm going to move forward in a positive way.
Quickly, some text message. This one says, I want to meet with this professor before she go back. Benjamin Pratt, General Beno Ben, the journalist. And this one says, Sister Maginda, I can feel in your voice the emotions for coming back to your roots. Take this message back to the rest of our people that Sierra Leone needs them more than ever before. We need a rebirth as a nation. It come from Abu Diaz. And this other one read, welcome home, madam. No place like home. It come from Sabina Fowler na Dwozak community. And this other one say, you are welcome, the journalist professor to Sierra Leone. We hope you will help to bring more Sierra Leoneans back home. It comes from Dauda from Moyamba. And this other one say, thanks that there are people out there who are proud to belong to Sweet Salona. President Dr. Kroma has really rebranded Sierra Leone. So let us love and embrace each other. Welcome home, my dear sister from Meadow. Na Godrich in a text message. Keep those texts coming. 077.
I was being loved and embraced. Yet again, words cannot capture how I was really feeling. But the pictures can. Happy. I love this guy who was putting his head on my shoulder. We had just met, all of us, but you couldn't tell by our interactions. It was truly like being with friends and family. Well, guess what's up next? To one of the #1 television talk shows. Can you believe it? I felt like the Oprah Winfrey of Salone. Yes, now if I can only get her type of money. But that's another story. Anyway, going live with the program was exciting and fun. What was interesting is that there were a total of 4 guests, including myself. Each guest had their own topic, and in one single show, the host interviewed each one of us one question at a time on each topic. So he would ask one guest one question about one topic, give them about 30 seconds to answer, and then go to the next guest and ask them one question about a totally different topic, then give 30 seconds to answer, go to the third guest, and so on. So it was almost like he was calling an auction, quick and fast and over before I knew it. It was a brand new way of interviewing and something I had never witnessed before, but I have to say he did it smoothly and without a hitch. The Open Government Initiative began actually in 2009 when President Obama called for a worldwide engagement in openness, transparency, participation, and collaboration between bodies of government and its constituents, the people. This form of collaboration is extremely important to the people here, not only because of the power and influence the president and ministers possess, but also because of the many smaller governing entities that exist in each province, city, and village. So the two organizations decided to form a partnership in the interest of peace, development, and cohesion among civil society activists and the media, all working together and developing a media platform that acts as a cultural unifier. The entire event was informative, and it seemed that the messengers were excited about their future in the process. Well, I sincerely hope that things work out for them. It's an important process, and that if done effectively, can serve both the government and the people in ethical and responsible ways. It was a great day of exploring and participating in the media aspect of Sierra Leone as Oprah Jr., even without the coins. I still felt like $1,000,000 with a treasure chest full of new information. So I've met everyone. I've seen everything I could have possibly seen within the time period that I've had. And I'm leaving to head back to the States the day after tomorrow. I still haven't seen the one place that everyone says is a must. The last place many Africans lived their last days of freedom before heading into slavery. Bunce Island, also known as Bance Island, Bence Island with a C, and Bunce Island spelled with an S. Bunce Island is a site of an 18th century British slave castle or trading site located in the Sierra Leone River. Thousands of slaves were shipped from there to the North American low country of the British colonies in South Carolina and Georgia, Gullah country, and other parts of America. The knowledge of this island became extremely popular thanks to the dedication of work of anthropologist Joseph Opala. Through his research, the connection was made between the Gullah people, Bunce Island, and Sierra Leoneans. I wanted to visit the Bunce Island badly, though, but I ran into a very serious problem. I just didn't have enough money left to reserve a touring spot.
Can you see me? Yes, I can see you. Okay, so Mary's recording this right now. It is early in the morning. I've been up since about 5 o'clock. I'm about to meet Isatu Smith with our lovely chauffeur, driver, Christian. And on my last day here, the last day of my trip, it was actually worked out that I can go to Bunce Island on my last day. Isn't that ironic? That on my last day here on my trip, I'm going to spend it on the island on the same island that the Africans were on last before they went to America. That's ironic, isn't it? So I'll let you know how it goes. Wish me luck going to the bush.
I couldn't wait to take a short ferry ride to the historic island. Wait, did I say short? Okay, I spoke too soon.
We are going to Bunce Island. I'm going to try to take you to Bunce Island one way or the other. We're going to hop on the ferry, and then there'll be a cab waiting for us at Green that will take us to Pepel. And then we're going to get on a boat for Pepel that will take us to Bunce Island. And then I'm going to give you a tour of the island, and then we'll see what happens after that. I'm not going to say anything more about that because I don't want to spoil it for you.
So you heard it there. I'm actually getting my own private tour of Bunce Island. I didn't know, I didn't have enough money, I didn't have enough time, but just like Sierra Leoneans, they have a gracious heart and they find a way to work it out for you. So this is just a real blessing and a real miracle that I'm even going on the last day that I'm here. So this is going to be an experience. I guess it is an experience that I was not meant to miss. So let's get on board.
Located about 20 miles upriver from Sierra Leone's capital city of Freetown on the coast, Bunce Island lies in what was called the Freetown Harbor. That's where the Roquel River and Port Loco Creek meet.
I haven't had a chance to eat breakfast, and that's what happens sometimes, but what you can do is grab a Sierra Leone breakfast, one of them, which is everything that I gave up before I came. Bread and cheese. So this is my breakfast, but it'll hold me until lunch, which I'm going to have, guess what? On an island that's uninhabited, I'm going to have bread and cheese and some oranges. So vitamin C, carbs and starches. But going through the jungle, I should get a good workout.
Although it's a small island, only a little over 1,600 feet long and 350 feet wide, it's perfectly and strategically positioned in a way that limits the navigation of ocean-going ships in Africa's largest natural harbor, making it an ideal base for slave traders. Once in Tigray, we then squeezed into a taxi with two other passengers to take one of the roughest rides I have ever been on in my life. finally reached the third leg of the trip.
We are at Pepel, which is the closest town to Bunce Island. But way back when slave trade was going on, this was called the North Shore or the Bunum Shore. And this was where the landlord resided that rented Bunce Island and the surrounding islands to the slave traders. So, it is now a built-up mining town. But way back there wasn't a town; it was just a little settlement where the chief lived. It was called a king then. The king's name was by Adam at that time. By Sam. I'm sorry. The landlord's name was by Sam that lived on the North Shore at that time. So we're looking across the waters. We're looking at Bunce Island, which is just like 5 minutes away, and we're gonna be hopping on a boat that will take us to Bunce Island, where I will give Janice our own private tour of the island.
As we walked to the water's edge around the corner, I saw people getting on and off boats and, of course, the beautiful sight of children. Our boat arrived, and I was beginning the voyage of the last voyage for so many Africans. I began to take note of everything: how I stepped into the boat, what the temperature felt like, how the breeze felt against my skin. Did the air smell like freedom or doom?
So it's this small island that we're about to head to that you see right in front of me, that is Bunce Island. This is where the Africans came before they were deported into slavery all across the world. I'm on the same waters that they traveled on to get to the island. And it feels really weird. I can tell you that already I'm feeling some type of emotion and a sense of sadness, I guess. A sense of sadness, like I'm on the voyage myself going over to the island. But they didn't know what they were getting into. They didn't know that they wouldn't return. Because I know the history. It's upsetting. I feel sad. I feel sad that they went over there and didn't know what was going to happen. And this was the last time they would see their mothers and their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their children, their grandparents, brothers and sisters. I mean, just to imagine, in the middle of nowhere, this island just appears. Shark-infested island where you can't escape. You can escape to death. And for some, I'm sure, that was an option that they thought about very closely, very deeply.
Okay, now the one we be go step family. Okay.
Sauri.
Yes, sir.
How the money?
Me na this money no see the car. You first stand on yourself. You first go down.
Jump.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hello?
Who's sick?
You know. Spider, you came up and died. I mean, I'm a do. Welcome to Bunce Island. We are sitting on the beach on the downriver side of Bunce Island. This is one of 40 forts that the British operated along the West African coast. We are actually at the upriver side of the Sierra Leone Harbour, and this is the largest natural harbour in Africa, the third largest in the world. Here, because it's at the limit of navigation, ocean-going vessels can only come this far upriver without getting grounded in the sand. And the reason that is important was because during its history, Bunce Island was attacked by the French, by pirates, and by rival Afro-Portuguese. So defense wasn't its primary concern, but it was a concern. With it be at the limit of navigation, it can only be attacked from this side, which gives the traders enough opportunity to escape from the shallow upriver side to a friendly African village where they will sit and wait out till the attackers have left, and then they will come back and rebuild their fort. This fort was burned down like in 5 or 6 times, and the ruins that we have now, we think might be the ruins of like the 5th or 7th fort that was built here. So each time the fort was attacked and burned down, the traders will flee upriver, and then after the attackers leave, they'll come back and rebuild their fort. This is the trading area where the exchange took place.
This is the well that they would drink fresh water from, that came from Trestle Island. And this is the walkway where the Africans would walk through and down the pathway onto slave ships. This is their walk, their pathway to the river of no return. What they may have seen as they walked away from freedom.
It's sad. That's what I feel, that it's very sad.
I had no more words, and so we continued on. I could see how beneficial it was to choose this island as the central headquarters of the slave trade. The island is surrounded by water, so there were no sneak attacks, and the big ships could anchor out a ways into the water, take smaller boats to shore, choose their slaves, make the transaction, and then meet the slaves on all sides of the island, headed into an enslaved world. All of this took place on the small island. All of it. Unbelievable. Anna Maria Horwood of Falconbridge was the first English woman to give a narrative account of experiences in West Africa. She would later write about her experiences in letters, which was published in a book titled Narrative of Two Voyages.
Involuntarily, I strolled to one of the windows a little before dinner, without the smallest suspicion of what I was to see. Judge then what my astonishment and feelings were at the sight of between 200 and 300 wretched victims, chained and parcelled out in circles, just satisfying the cravings of nature from a trough of rice placed in the centre of each circle. Offended modesty rebuked me with a blush for not hurrying my eyes from such disgusting scenes. But whether fascinated by female curiosity, or whatever else, I could not withdraw myself for several minutes. While I remarked some whose hair was withering with age reluctantly tasting their food, and others thoughtless from youth, greedily devouring all before them, be assured I avoided the prospects from this side of the house ever after.
I looked through the area where she may have witnessed this inhumane act, and tried to imagine seeing it for myself. Again, my imagination could only go but so far. Perhaps it was cognitive dissonance. Whatever this wall was, did not prepare me for what was next.
This is where the blacksmith shop was at. This is where the shackles were made.
The women were kept on this side, and the men were kept on this side. Isitu said that this side is believed to be the side where they kept women because there were remains of what appeared to be a roof and a window of some sort of a makeshift building. The men's side, on the other hand, had no covering of any kind. I gazed out onto the waters, embracing possibly the same view, the last view they would have seen of their homeland.
Okay, so after the slaves get here, they were examined like cattle. You know, their ear, teeth, nose. They were hit on the knees to make them jump, make sure they were able-bodied, and then they were then branded with the letters RACE, meaning Royal African Company of England, on one breast when they got here, and when they left to be put on board slave ships bound for the West, they were again branded with the letter S, denoting that they came from Sierra Leone, which was by that time spelled as just one word. And the slaves, seeing that they were being treated like cattle, they were being branded and they were being examined like cattle, they assumed that the white man was going to take them abroad and they were going to eat them, kill them and eat them. So they became very terrified and they developed a condition called the lethargy. They became catatonic and they did not respond to any external stimuli. They refused to eat or drink, and some of them died of this condition. It became so bad that in the later years, when the fort was run by private companies, the traders hired interpreters to explain to these slaves that they were not going to be eaten. Instead, they were going to be taken to work on plantations, and they stopped branding them. Instead, they applied color strings on them to denote where they came from. That was a means that they developed, of trying to keep their slaves calm until they could sell them to other slave traders or take them to the West to work in plantations.
As we continued our walk around the island, peering into a black hole filled with bats where dynamite used to be stored, Isatu yelled out in pain, and it appeared that out of nowhere something bit her arm. But we didn't even see any kind of insect of any kind. In fact, the spot on her arm began to appear as we actually looked at it. So it wasn't there, then all of a sudden it just started to appear. Oh boy. Okay, now it's time to keep it moving. Let's go.
So Professor Gates, when he was here, asked the question, why didn't the 600 free Africans overpower the Europeans and free the slaves? And I don't know. I wish I can tell you why, but I honestly don't know. Could it be that because they were so brainwashed into thinking that the Europeans were superior, that they could not be overpowered? Could it be that because the Europeans had big cannons and the Africans only had machetes and small guns? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. But the truth is, there were free Africans here working, and they outnumbered the Europeans at any point in time. But no, they never did rise up against the slave traders to free the state, and I don't know why.
Perhaps we will never know the full answer to this question. Perhaps in the scheme of things, it may not be that important. What we do know is that there were collaborators. This gravesite, marked by a flat tombstone, was imported from Europe and contains the remains of one of the collaborators, an African named Adam. Adam was from the Temne tribe and was the African foreman. This means that he helped the Europeans with the trading of Africans as slaves. Some of his descendants still live in a village close by, and they have a section of the chiefdom that was given to his descendants. The head of this section is called Bidam, meaning chief. Security is needed around the clock now because people were stealing pieces here and there for souvenirs and for spiritual reasons, even stealing parts of Adam's resting place. The other resting places are graves of other slaves.
I'm trying to feel some type of presence or, I don't know, essence of something that may be connected to my ancestors, my mother's side ancestors, and knowing that she walked through that doorway. Which brought about me. I just like to think that if she was here, or her presence was here, that she would be thrilled to know that I'm coming back as a free woman, like my mother was free. And I would say, I'm sorry for what you went through, but I thank you for your sacrifice that you made for me. Thank you.
I think of my other ancestors as I leave the island who never made it. never survived, and I think of my ancestral mother. She must have been a strong woman, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. She had to be. How else would she have survived? Any of them. Because of her willpower to live, she gave birth to a mother, who gave birth to another and another, until my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, my sister, and myself were born. Amazing. I will never forget this trip, nor Isatu Smith, who, out of the goodness of her heart, her generosity, and her feeling that it was absolutely imperative that as an African American I visit Bunce Island, made a dream come true for me. And I thank you. As I leave this beautiful country, my thoughts turn to the war that has left Sierra Leone damaged in so many ways. The damage that fell on their economy, the inner and outer structure of the world, as well as the physical damage that still exists, even though I didn't see much of it while I was there. The emotional and spiritual damage found in the tears and silent pain that filled the bodies of the kindest of people was constantly being drowned out by the music and dances to forget and move on, doing anything they could to hang on to whatever hope was left. And there was an obvious spirit of hope. The hope that things will eventually get better. A hope that I believe connects directly to their survival. I hope, wish, and pray that things improve for Salone as well. And in their honor and the honor of my ancestors, in the future, when I dance, I'll dance in the spirit of hope and victory. When I pray, I'll pray in the spirit of hope and healing, wishing that all of their dreams come true for a better tomorrow. I also leave with the new understanding that some Africans are unaware of the pain many of their descendants, like myself, felt and feel in America. But now, through me, they have seen our sense of loss or unknowing of separation, up close and personal. And now we are connected once again so that we can begin to heal. At least that is my hope. I take with me every embrace, every smile, every kiss, every handshake, every moment that has welcomed me to my homeland. The land of lioness mountains that are tall and broad and strong enough to kiss the sky and kiss me and my African American sisters and brothers across the lakes, seas, and oceans. If you have ever asked yourself, as a people, if we lost everything crossing the Middle Passage, I'm happy to tell you that the answer is no. Who you are from the root still resides inside of you, in your dance, in your dress, your attitude, your speech, your music, your religion, your spirit, your soul, even in the little things you do and feel that had no home until now. Embrace who you are, love who you are, and know that you are free. I am free.
So here I am, home once again in America. And I still feel free despite the challenges that surround me every day. I'm free in my mind, in my soul, and my spirit, having gained a perspective as a survivor of a people who were enslaved. And that feels good and that feels empowering. Across the oceans, Africans view me, you, as heroes and sheroes who have survived the inhumane act of slavery. And we're doing great things. And in spite of the devastating situations that Sierra Leoneans have had to endure, I want to tell you, they remained kind, loving, giving, passionate, compassionate, and indeed hopeful. It's truly inspiring to see and experience. You may be wondering if the knowing of my DNA connection really makes a difference. Have I changed? Well, let me answer those questions by saying this. I would say there's been an awakening. I actually embrace myself and more of who I am from the inside out without apology. For instance, I've embraced the fact that I'm what Sierra Leoneans call the crier of the family. This means like in 2002 when my mother passed away, I felt that someone had to mourn and grieve this wonderful woman. So I did just that. I paid respect to her life, and all that she has done for me and my family and others, and I wept for a year. I felt that it was my duty for some reason, my responsibility. Now here in the States, in my country, even maybe in my family, some would look at this and say, do you need some extra help? Which is nothing wrong with that. But guess what? In Salone, which is Sierra Leone for short, they would see my position as an honorable and spiritual chosen position as the crier of the family. It's part of their culture to have criers. The difference is that in their culture, I would go to work, do my day-to-day task, and other criers from the village would come to my home to mourn for my mother while I was gone. And then when I returned home, I could begin the grieving process all over again. Now, isn't that a great idea? So perhaps I'm not just the sensitive middle child. Perhaps. But anyway, some other changes that I've noticed, I don't like to sleep with the windows closed anymore. I like to be closer to nature. And I find that I do better physically eating mostly organic foods, mostly vegetables and seafood. That's my favorite way of eating anyways, but perhaps I'm embracing it more because it is the diet of my people. As I grew up, this feeling or sentiment that African Americans don't belong in America was always there. Something that, while understood as part of history, really just didn't seem to make sense to me in so many ways. What I've learned and how I'm free now is, let me tell you something. If you're born in America, you are American. Unfortunately, centuries ago, Americans were divided by race and color, and from that day, we were made to feel less than, like you don't belong. But I will tell you, as you walk on the ground of this great country, that your forefathers and mothers who also helped develop and died to develop this country, you indeed belong, and this is your home. So own it. This is your country, as much as it is any other American, and you should feel proud of your history, all of it. Know that as an American, you should have all the benefits and freedoms and opportunities as the next American, but unfortunately we know that in some circumstances, this is just not the case. Differences from all corners of a person's identity, besides race and ethnicity, continue to emerge within this country that dictate the haves and the have-nots. And I'll tell you, my belief, until we see each other, you and me together, as simply Americans, people will continue to hurt, people will continue to protest, and people will continue to die for the simple opportunity of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As for my constructed identity, I come back and I see myself as a Black American, a label given to us to describe a particular color and a label I have embraced from the protest of the 60s that says, I'm black and I'm beautiful. Much like the description early explorers used to refer to our people, labeling us black gold. I'm African American because my story, my history, my ancestors still reside in me. I've learned that while there is a beautiful connection to my African ancestry, there is also a beautiful connection to my American ancestry. And I love and claim them both. Now, I feel that I truly know, or at least feel what it is to be an African American. To me, it's the best of two great lands of origin, Africa and America. As an aside, let me also say that I've discovered that I have Irish, Scottish, and English blood in me as well, but that'll be for another documentary. Something I look forward to discovering and really being proud of as well. You know, at the end of it all, most importantly, I am a human being who has learned more about who I am and my story. This knowledge, knowing, has empowered me and liberated me. No longer a slave in my mind, heart, spirit, or performance, because I know more about who I am, who my people are, and where I come from. Enslavement was just a process. It does not define who I am or what I will become, because I am free. Free because I own my own identity, who I am. But you know what? At the end of it all, and as I close out this program, remember that this journey was not just about me. I made this journey for every American who truly wants to know and understand how America was developed and survived and flourished, as well as the casualties that remain omitted and hidden from the stories of our country. For every American who values history and ancestry. I made this journey for every American, African American, African in America, Black America, and American African, to help mend and heal the roots that were painfully and tragically severed, nearly severed, hundreds of years ago. This is a journey that provides healing, not just for me, not just for you, but for this country, who still has a long way to go towards healing and repairing a very sensitive but important relationship between cultures. I made this journey to recapture our own hope in this country, the hope and blessing that instead of melting together and losing our identities, we actually come together in harmony as who we are, authentically Americans of various origins who respect truth, differences, and multiplicities of self-identification. I took this journey for the children of the world who in their dreams know and feel that there's something special about them, in them. If you have this feeling, I want you to believe it, and I want you to seek it out and celebrate when you find it. This journey was for the ones who didn't make it, Black, white, all of the people who gave their lives so that I could be here today. For the ones who did make it and fought to survive, I'm here today. I did this for you. I hope you will be able to take your own journey one day to the land of your ancestors. I wish this for you. And in that spirit, until reparations are granted, if so, I would like to see each African American family household receive 2 DNA tests, one from Ancestry.com and one from AfricanAncestry.com, to try to help fill in the gaps that we were left with, as well as one paid trip to the land of their ancestors. Wouldn't that be nice? This will at least help us to regain all that was lost, taken from us, or denied to us. And then we can begin piecing our identities back together ourselves. This will be a beginning to repairing the damage that we did not cause. I know, it'll take some time. So until that time, know that I made this journey for you. For I am you and you are me, and we are all one together. And finally, I made this journey for my family, my father and sister and brothers, nieces, nephews, aunts, and uncles, who share my blood in the desire to explore more about their story. And I made this journey for my mother, and her mother, and her mother, all the way back to my ancestral mother, who was brave enough, strong enough, determined enough to survive, so that I could tell the story right now at this very moment, her story that will never die. You know, my mother may have passed away in 2002, but her spirit continues to live in me. If she was physically standing in front of me right now, right at this moment, I would say, Mommy, I love you. And you were right. There was always something more. And I am honored and blessed to have completed this gift for you. My story. Our story. And guess what? You out there, you have a story of your own to tell. And I just can't wait to hear it. I want to thank you for joining me on my journey to my mother's land and extending the Gates effect into Sierra Leone, West Africa. I really hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. I'm Dr. Janice Marie Collins, Maganda Collins. God bless you, Ashe Ashe, and Kayin Goma, which means thanks be to God. Until our next journey, together. Good night, everybody.